Let me ask you guys something. Has there been some corruption going on within the United States Congress dealing with the United States taxpayer money? Hmm. We're going to find out today on Rate the Leadership. I am your host, Jai Mays. Yes, I have my thumbs down because by the time we finish with this, you're going to say thumbs down. I am your host, Jai Mays, and I am here to go over this full compilation for you on the spending Congress has been doing for decades. And we are just now finding out. Let me give you also, look, guys, my lovely 10 Commandments. My husband finally got them up for me. And I love these because the 10 Commandments is the foundation for great leadership. Without that foundation, there is no leadership because it has the main things in there. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, meaning lie on someone. So we're going to think about these commandments as we go over this compilation. Also, I always want to read to you guys the characteristics of good leadership. And we're going to look for some of these words today for accountability. Okay. So we're going to have self-awareness, integrity, communication, decision making, vision, transparency, adaptability, honesty, accountability, empathy, collaboration, empowerment, courage, commitment. These are some of the keywords used for good leadership. So in today's compilation, we're going to talk about how President Donald J. Trump has given Elon Musk and some outside consultants full reign to go in and check the books, the United States books on the Treasury, the ledger, to see if they can cut cost or cut waste. Why? Because with any successful business, if you don't know where your money's going out, if you don't know how much is going out and how much is coming in, how can you tell if you're not profitable or if you are profitable? You need to be able to know these things. Most businesses, not even Fortune 500, they all send in an outside consultant to check the ledger, to make sure there is no inside fraud happening. It's called an audit. When you have on your business mind, you understand this. So let's get into this because what I want you guys to see is one of my favorite senators, John Kennedy. He just keeps it so real. He's out of Louisiana. He is going to explain what is happening because for some reason the Democrat Party, the previous administration, they are having a complete meltdown because President Trump has asked an outside consultant to come in and check the ledger to find waste, cut cost, so America can be profitable again. This happens in business. So before I get to John Kennedy, I want to play something Senator Jamie Raskin said. This is the same senator that had plans to not let President Trump win the presidential election. But before I get into John Kennedy and all of the wasteful spending, I'm going to let Jamie Raskin tell you who is responsible for all of the wasteful spending. I'm going to let him tell you. And then when we're done, I'm going to play it again. So you will know who is responsible for all of this unnecessary spending and fraud happening in the United States government. Let's get into this. Here we go.
You may have illegally seized power over the financial payment. Elon Musk, you may have illegally seized power over the financial payment systems of the United States Department of Treasury, but you don't control the money of the American people. The United States Congress does that.
Just so you all know, he is letting you know who is responsible for all of this unnecessary fraudulent, wasteful spending. I'm going to play it one more time, just so you all know. And I want you to rate the leadership, because
Elon Musk, you may have illegally seized power over the financial payment systems of the United States Department of Treasury, but you don't control the money of the American people. The United States Congress does that.
now we know who is responsible. So let's get into John Kennedy, because he's going to break this down so well. And I just love the way he speaks. He breaks it down, just like elementary, so you can understand this clearly. Here we go.
Senator from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield 30 minutes of my post-cloture debate time on the Vogt nomination to Senator Merkley, and 30 minutes of my post-cloture debate time on the Vogt nomination to Senator Schumer.
The senator has that right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
The senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have 8 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today is one of my colleagues from my Senate office, Mr. James Shea. He is one of my right-hand people and does great work, and I'm honored that he could join me today. Gosh, I don't know where to begin. I've been in the Senate for 8 years. In dog years, that's 56 years. And it feels like 56 years. I've learned a lot, met a lot of interesting people. Before I got here, everybody told me about the Washington bubble. And I said, how serious could they be? Well, it's true. There is a Washington bubble. This place is different. It's in its own way, sometimes disappointing, sometimes refreshing. It is deeply weird. For one thing, common sense is illegal in Washington. It's illegal. For another thing, I've discovered that this is a town of very frustrated ex-class presidents. And there's a Washington way of doing things. And when things aren't done that way, when somebody challenges the status quo, many, not all, but many of these frustrated ex-class presidents in Washington, on the Hill and otherwise, they get excited, not in a good way. They can't get their mind around doing anything other than the Washington way. Some of them, particularly in the media, they go almost catatonic, or the exact opposite. They foam at the mouth. And they really get upset. They can make a Valium nervous. It's like the world, we're not doing things the way we've always done them, and the world's going to spin off its axis. I want to try to put in perspective what many of my Democratic friends have been talking about today. They're very, very, very upset at President Trump. And they're very, very, very upset at Elon Musk. President Trump ran for president on a number of issues. One of the issues he ran on, he said it almost every day. He said, if you elect me president, I'm going to go through the entire budget and review all the spending, line by line. If I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 1,000 times. And that's what he's been doing. He went out and appointed, through an executive order, Elon Musk, who some people like him, some don't, but he's not a dummy. He's a very successful business person. He's got a top secret security clearance. President Trump issued an executive order, and he turned to Mr. Musk, and he said, Mr. Musk, I want you to do for me what I said I was going to do in the election. I want you to go through all the spending, line by line. Now, let me ask you something, Mr. President. How are you going to review the spending without reviewing the spending? How are you going to audit the spending by an agency without auditing the agency? That's what I mean when I say common sense is illegal in Washington, D.C. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. He's put together a crackerjack team, and they're going through everybody's spending line by line, item by item. And my Democratic colleagues are very, very, very upset. And they've been very eloquent. They've talked about the process, and President Trump's executive order supposedly violates the Constitution. And they've accused Mr. Musk of having conflicts of interest. And so I've heard people say he's sitting over there with a notepad, copying down everybody's Social Security number, and he's going to go use it to make money. I mean, people in this town, not just my Democratic colleagues, they're really upset. They've never said anybody question their spending. But that's what Mr. Musk is doing. But you know, I've listened. This has been going on for a week. People have been screaming like they're part of a prison riot. Oh, my God, look at what Musk is doing. He's looking at the spending. And I've listened to people talk about the process and debate whether it's constitutional and discuss how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin. But you know what? I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found. They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested. The American people. The people in America who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to educate their kids and try to do the right thing by their kids and try to save a little money for retirement, and have had to live through 20% inflation under President Biden. They understand what Musk is doing. They understand spending porn and wasting taxpayer money. Now, Mr. Musk started with the USAID. That handles a lot of foreign aid for America. American people are very generous.
Wait until you all hear some of the findings Elon Musk has uncovered. And you tell me at the end, do they deserve a thumbs up or a thumbs down for leadership? Let's go.
In our country, you know, when you're homeless, we'll house you. When you're hungry, we'll feed you. In our country, when you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. And we send a lot of money overseas to help our world's neighbors. And the USAID is in charge, in large part, of that. But I'll tell you what Mr. Musk discovered. I find it fascinating. He discovered that the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan. He found that we are giving money to Yemen. He found that we are giving money to Syria. I didn't know that. Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people, 10,000 people, employees. And every year they give away $40 billion. Mr. Musk also found, and I'm not saying that all of this money is wasteful. I'm not. Some of this money, I'm sure, does some good. That's why Secretary Rubio is going to revamp the department and separate the good from the bad. But this is the kind of stuff Mr. Musk found. He found that the USAID gave money to support electric vehicles in Vietnam. Our money, taxpayer money. He found that USAID gave money to a transgender clinic in India. I didn't know that. I bet you the American people didn't know that. He found that the USAID gave $1.5 million to a Serbian LGBTQ group called Grupa Izladaji. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. Anyway, they got $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. What else did Mr. Musk found that my colleagues don't want to talk about? Well, he reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations. Our taxpayer money. According to this report in Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas.
I also read an article that they sent $50 million for, how do I say this? Men rappers. How do I? Protection, men private protection. $50 million worth for men's private protection in Gaza. Go look it up. There's certain things I can't say on YouTube, but it's ridiculous. Okay.
Why aren't my colleagues talking about that? Recipients of the money, they found, have, quote, called for their lands to be cleansed from the impurity of Jews. That's what we're giving foreign aid to. What else? I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about this, but nobody else is talking about it. They're just talking about the process and Mr. Musk, and he's a mean guy, and he shouldn't be looking at our spending. Well, he is. And I kind of find what he's found out interesting. He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to
What?
produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we Musk, and he's a mean guy, and he shouldn't be looking at our spending. Well, he is. And I kind of find what he's found out interesting.
I had to rewind it because I missed something. So here we go.
He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we gave.
They can't do their own version of Sesame Street. Why do they need our money to do that? You can get some puppets and make Sesame Street. I don't understand. This is Iraq. What?
Gave $4.5 million of taxpayer money to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. He found that we gave $10 million, USAID did, of meals to an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front.
Are we funding terror? Did we know? I didn't know this. Can we get a refund since our tax dollars didn't go to the appropriate place? Can we get a refund? Because I don't want to pay taxes to fund terrorism. Why would I want to fund terrorism?
Mr. Musk found that we gave $7.9 million of taxpayer money to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language.
They just came up with this nonsense. Probably what, the 70s? I mean, this is nonsense. Binary. There's only two genders. So who came up with this psychotic? This is crazy.
The USAID took $8 million and gave it to a bunch of journalists in Sri Lanka to teach them how to avoid binary gendered language. I don't know what the hell binary gendered language is.
Me either, Senator. Me either.
I think I do. You think most taxpayers would support that? Why aren't we talking about that? The USAID gave $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. They gave
promoting something that is ungodly. I didn't sign up for that. Did you sign up for that? What about the Christians and that does not, align with their religion? Shouldn't we have a say in where we want our money to go?
$5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. They gave $1.5 million for, quote, art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Another $3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia. $8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal. I could go all night. And many of my colleagues are upset. They're really mad at Mr. Musk. Hell, I think we ought to give him a medal. All he's doing is what President Trump said he was going to do. President Trump said he's going to audit the spending. So Trump goes and hires Musk, again with the top secret security clearance. Nobody can quibble with his intelligence. You know, the guy's as smart as Einstein's cousin. He's a very successful businessman. Some say he's the richest guy in the world. And he's doing the auditing. And man, he's finding a lot of stuff. I call it spending porn. Now, I'm not saying everything that USAID does is wasted, but I'm saying a lot of it is. A hell of a lot of it is. And we ought to be on the floor of this United States Senate thanking Mr. Musk. And we ought to be asking him to go through every agency and look at everybody.
I'll say it. Thank you so much, President Trump, and thank you, Elon Musk, because you're not even getting paid to do this. You are using your own time to do this. And we know time is worth more than money. So I thank you, Elon Musk, for uncovering the deceit that has been going on in our country concerning us as the taxpayers' money.
Budget. Everybody's budget. That's what the American people want. They don't want to talk about process. They don't.
We want to know where our money is going and what is it going to fund. Obviously, it's going to fund sin and corruption. Rate the leadership here.
Want to continue with the Washington way. They want to save some money.
Everybody on the leadership team needs to be fired. Every one of them. They all need to be fired.
Let me tell you what's really going on here too, Mr. President. For 4 years under President Biden, and for 8 years under President Obama, and I respect both of them. I don't hate anybody. I don't. When I say my prayers at night, one of the things I ask God, God, don't let me hate, because it's hard in Washington. Don't let me hate. I have all the respect in the world for President Biden and President Obama. Tough job. But between them, they spent 12 years in Washington, and presidents set the tone. They control the question.
President sets the tone, meaning the fish rots from the head. It starts at the beginning. Who is the leader? That's why we have this show, Rate the Leadership, because it starts at the head.
That are asked. And here's the question that President Obama and President Biden asked for 8 years. I heard it for 12 years. I heard it every single day. Who needs to pay more in taxes? Is it you? Is it you? Who needs to pay more in taxes?
For everyone who's against us because we don't want to pay more taxes and we don't go along with the status quo of voting Democrat, this is why. Do you see why?
We need more money. Who needs to pony up more? That was the issue.
You know what that reminds me of? Nero, the emperor of, Rome, Nero. And I remember watching the documentary of Nero, and he was going through the town telling everyone we need more tax dollars, more tax dollars. Why? To build his pleasure palaces for his own personal pleasure. He said, we need more taxes. So he started collecting more from the people for his own personal gain. Is that good leadership? Remember, a leader must first be a servant. If you're only looking out for yourself and not for the people you govern, is that good leadership? Nero's also the emperor. I think he played the violin as his country burned down. Think about that.
But that's not the issue today. We have a new president. You know what the issue is today? What the hell happened to all the money?
What happened to all of the money? Now, I have a part 2 of this, so I'm going to get right into, I'm going to go to Mr. Joe Rogan because he's going to go over more of the spending really quickly. Here we go.
For Iraqi Sesame Street,
Okay.
$2 million for Moroccan pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash, $27 million to give gift bags to illegals, $27 million, $330 million to help Afghanis grow crops, crops, Wonder what those crops are. What's their biggest crop, Brett?
It's going to be the poppy seeds for bagels. I'm thinking.
$200 million on an unused Afghani dam. $250 million on an unused Afghani road. This is wild. I mean,
let's keep going. Let's go to see what another TikToker said about the United States Treasury. What are the Democrats blocking now? They're trying to stop Elon from getting in there looking at that ledger and the spending. Let's see what else they're doing. Let's go.
Doge. Apparently this time it's the U.S. Treasury Department who has more waste and abuse of taxpayer funds than so far anything else that they've looked at. 23%. And it appears that there are people receiving entitlements to the tune of $50 billion with a B dollars a year that have no known social security number or.
Do you know how many American people are suffering? Do you know how many small businesses are suffering and need startup cash and cash flow? But our government is sending money for corruption and sin. Thank God for President Trump.
ID on file. $50 billion, that's $1 billion a week in fraud and abuse. But not only is $1 billion a week going to unknown sources with no social security numbers and no valid ID. In addition to that, apparently the Treasury Department doesn't keep itemized records of their payouts. So there's no way to follow up and
you can't track the money. This is corruption at its finest.
check as to where the money is going. So as of right now, the Treasury Department and Elon Musk Doge has agreed that going forward, the Treasury Department will now itemize all of the payments that they make, like where the money's going, to what entities, to whom. It is shocking to me.
No wonder the Democrats are mad, guys. All is being discovered. See, no one likes discovery. You know how you're going through a court case or you're going through a divorce and they have to go to discovery? And that means everything is uncovered. Everything you've been doing is laid out on the table. And whatever your spouse didn't know about, she's going to know in that discovery when they talk about what they've discovered. This is what's happening right now. And whoever's not doing the right thing, they always come to the defense. I mean, you invade my personal privacy. No, this is discovery. This is what's supposed to happen. What have you been holding out on? Same thing with the United States. We see that they are acting like toddlers. And you've just taken away their applesauce. I mean, a complete fool. Now we see why. They've been stealing. And they do not want this information to come out because it will expose all of their bad leadership.
And it should be shocking to every taxpayer that our own
I'm shocked.
Treasury Department has no accountability and keeps no formal records of where.
This is why Jesus says, trust no man. And yes, I do thank God that we have a new commander-in-chief that fears God in the White House, but the Bible said, trust no man. And we see why. Trust God only. And we see why.
Where they're paying and what they're paying. We could not get away with that at home with our own budgets. And could you imagine if the IRS came into our houses and said, well, I want to see itemized list of all these things that you pay.
Did you know that Joe Biden was getting ready, had geared up to send out 87,000 IRS agents to look through your Venmo and Cash App payments of $400 to $600 and more? But they are spending billions on corruption? Trust no man. Trust God only.
And we didn't have it, they would say, well, we're just going to assume that you did X, Y, Z, and we're just going to slap what we think you owe. But there's no accountability on their end. This is absolute insanity.
Nearly $3 trillion in taxpayer
Nearly
money since
$170 billion in improper payments last year.
$247 billion.
Billions blown on improper payments.
Made to people that should not have received them.
Overpayments, payments to the wrong recipient.
Dead people received more than $530 million last year in pension payments. Medicare paying $47 billion.
Hundreds of billions of dollars.
Medicaid improperly issuing $81 billion.
$644 million was fraud.
And $764 billion under 3 years of the Biden administration. These improper payments have piled up to a total of $2.8 trillion.
$20 billion per month, or enough to pay for 5 years of U.S. foreign aid to all countries.
For every man, woman, and child across the country, it was $850.
Who is receiving these payments? Well, in some instances, dead people.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million,
right,
etc.?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are.
Oh, here we go. Here is discovery, honey. This is what they're scared of. See, a good leader is transparent. A good leader has accountability. A good leader is honest. I don't see any of these attributes in the previous party or in the Democrat Party that has had the Senate and the White House for 12 years. Is this good leadership to you? You know what I think.
They are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But they seem to be mysteriously, they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer.
Is it bribes? Or are they still in taxpayer money?
Expense. That's the honest truth of it. So they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So we're looking at we just.
Do you guys hear this? I wanted you guys to hear this straight from the horse's mouth. The hired consultant that has full security clearance to go in and check the ledger. And this is what he is discovering. Not only are we funding corruption, but just like the FBI agent told us when we started our business years ago, he came around and we were invited to a small business forum. And that FBI agent said, always check your books, oversee everything, because most theft is internal. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this segment with me. I pray you all have received value out of this video, and I will see you on the next Rate the Leadership.